You're listening to the Dear Next Gen podcast with your host, Cece. This show is brought to you by Montage. We're all about bridging gaps between generations through events, stories, and conversations about real stuff. Enjoy these candid chats, and don't forget, your younger self would be proud.
Hello friends, Cece here. If you are new, then welcome. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, love you so much. Grateful for your support for the last little while of having a podcast. It's been extremely fun, challenging, interesting, but mostly it's been inspiring because you get to listen to conversations with people that we think had a lot of life experience to share and really cool different ventures that they've tried out. So this is what our podcast is all about. We ask people what advice to give their younger or high school selves, and then we go from there and hear a little bit about their stories. So any feedback, any reviews, any stars means the world to our community. And if you want to get to know us, we're Montage, we're a nonprofit. We really like to bridge gaps between generations, which is something that I just don't see happen often, and that's why we continue to do this. Everything you need to know is linked in the show notes. If you want to support us in any way, we do have affiliate links, and also we are gearing up for a Gen Z friendly Galentine's Day conference in February. It is coming up soon if you're listening to this when the episode actually goes live, but we don't think there's enough events where they're curated for and by Gen Z and other generations are invited to be part of that and to pour into their lives. So that is the reason why we're going to make this happen no matter what. Today's episode with Eric is just proof that you can make friends on social media. A lot of the people that we've been interviewing have been social media friends or people that we think you could go and follow and just keep up with their lives after. And that is because after we get through a handful of these interviews that we pre-recorded, we're going to be doing panels with different friends and people in our live community. So that's why we're starting with a whole year of all these different fun interviews for you. But Eric is somebody that I technically met online through work in a certain way. He was doing content for one of the brands I work for and continues to do content for them. And it's just so good at being funny and being himself and bringing his friends in, and definitely a thrift king, which is probably why he has his own thrift store, which we talked about. And I know a lot of people who think that's really interesting or fun, or they've always wanted to do that. So this is proof that you can do that. You can be young and creative and put your passions into just what you want to do and make a profit out of it while you're at it. So hope you guys enjoy this conversation with Eric. It is just cool to be friends across the country with people and just follow along on their lives. And just, you think, oh yeah, one day I'll meet them in real life. But until then, you actually feel like you know them, which is extremely fun. And honestly, that's a lot of our team at Montage too. So yeah, thank you so much for just a fun year. Stay tuned for a couple more episodes with interviews, and then we'll take a little pause and let you catch up on all the episodes as well. Hello and welcome back to the Dear Next Gen podcast. Today I am with Eric. Eric, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah.
It's my first podcast, so
that is my favorite.
It's my podcast first, so
yeah,
about to make history.
One for the books. I like to snatch them first before you get too many demands, you know?
No, but see, like, you're the type of person, you're giving me the energy of like, I found the artist before they blew up. That's with your podcast.
That is my podcast. I like to do that even for like apps or for things like that. I like to be the first person who was like, oh, I know how this works. And I used it before it grew. Yeah. And that's a little bit how I like discovered you and all that. We'll get into that later. The first thing I'm going to ask you is, what advice would you give your younger or your high school self?
Ooh. If I were to give advice to like my high school or younger self, it would honestly to not be afraid to make mistakes. Just because like as like a high schooler, we kind of don't have that many, like, obviously everyone's situation is different in the world, but for most people as younger kids, high school, we're in a comfortable position where we have those opportunities to make mistakes. Like, we're young, we're wild, we're free. So it's like, if you want to pursue, say, acting, singing, dancing, go do it. If you want to go play sports and you want to pursue it, like, you owe it to yourself to kind of like just try anything and everything, because you never know what's going to stick. So obviously, like, for me growing up is that like, One thing that in high school, I had like this transition from grade 8 to grade 9. I used to live on one side of the city, then I moved to the other side of the city. So like I had no friends. My parents just picked me up
Mm,
and moved me somewhere completely different. I knew maybe one kid, but we weren't even that close. So being in this
mm-hmm.
like new high school, I had a whole fresh start, like so obviously, like what I did was the first year I kind of stayed quiet, didn't do much, But then one of my teachers, she came up to me and she goes like, "Hey Eric, like you've been very quiet." And I'm like, "Well, I don't have many friends
Oh,
here,
okay.
whatever. So I don't know, like what do you want me to do?" And she goes, "Well, can you join it's called peer mentorship." So basically
Okay.
like high school students come in and we go visit like grades 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and we go like hang
Oh,
out with them for
yeah,
the
that's
day.
great.
So she put me a part of it, and the next thing you know, like I liked helping people, I like figured out I liked helping people, and but then I also like social interaction and just hang out with people and just giving advice and all that stuff. So then eventually, like by grade 10, started playing sports. I played basketball. So like out of nowhere, I started just joining every club,
Mm-hmm.
basketball, volleyball, track and field, even curling for the fun of it, So started doing that and like
So Canadian.
right? But then like some of these sports I've never even played, but next thing you know, I find out, okay, like I'm sort of kind of athletic, like I can play sports, I can pick it up.
Mm,
And then next thing you know, like the next year I joined student council, because I like to make a difference because I wanted to try it.
mm-hmm.
So after trying student council for the year in grade 12, I ended up becoming the school president of the high school because
Mm,
I like making a difference, but it's all about like making those mistakes, right? Or putting myself in a position to make mistakes, if that makes sense, and just
mm-hmm.
trying new things. So maybe not my advice is not to make mistakes, but to just put yourself out there and just try anything and everything. In grade 9, I kind of shut myself off from trying to being the new kid at school. I shut myself down, right? Like I didn't want to really put myself out there.
Mm-hmm.
Then a teacher came up to me and gave me the opportunity to like put myself out there. Next thing you know, I like putting myself out there, and then it just spiraled and spiraled and
Yeah.
spiraled, and here I am today. So
Here
yeah,
you are
so
today. That
yeah,
that almost makes sense because just the nature of like what you do now, we can get into that, but you are putting yourself out there online. You're
yeah,
putting
for
yourself
millions
out
of
there.
people in front of the
Yeah,
world, which
for
is crazy.
brands, for yourself. Like, how did you get to that point where you're like, you know what, I'm gonna also try and maybe fail or maybe not and do content creation? Like what clicked to do that?
Yeah, so I would say my first big break when it came to like social media and content. Do you remember Tumblr back in the day?
Yes, I loved. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure I was
so
Tumblr famous.
I was Tumblr famous too. I had in grade 11, I just made a Tumblr just because like I like the cool pictures, like I got to see like
Yeah.
cool shoes, uh cars, all that stuff, just that lifestyle stuff. So obviously I made a
Mm-hmm.
Tumblr and I was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna make my Tumblr name. It was called loveswaglife.tumblr.com. So
Oh, oh
so like
wow,
yeah, so
wow.
it was very fitting for the time, it was very fitting.
Mm-hmm.
But then
That
next
that
thing
is
you
our
know,
generation to be on Tumblr.
right? Love like and the fact that I named it Love Swag Life was just I don't know, it's just I don't have the Tumblr anymore, um but basically like I just started reposting and reposting, and the next thing you know I started building a following for some reason. Like people just liked my content because I was on it every day, and then
Mm,
from there amassed to 30,000 followers. And then that was kind of like my okay, I stayed true to what I liked, you know what I mean? Like I never switched it up, and obviously like I started posting more frequently because I did have like an audience
mm-hmm.
following me, but my content never changed, like I just stayed to true to what I
Mm,
like. And that's kind of like my motto going forward with everything in this whole
yeah.
social media world is uh stick to what you like, don't do it if it's not fun, and be true to like what you do, like don't
Mm-hmm.
try to please others, please yourself, and the right audience will follow if you're good at what
Mm-hmm.
you're doing, so but back to like the social media. So tumblr was my first little tumblr was my first dip into the social media world. Then from tumblr days I got into photography because I like taking photos for tumblr. The next thing you
Yeah.
know, I started taking photos all throughout high school. And then around like university time, kind of just posted randomly for Instagram. TikTok wasn't really a thing, but I started making vines just for the fun of it. Never
Yeah.
really got fame or anything like that. But then instead of like working on the social media side of things, I dabbed into the business world. So I started working for a lot of startups and learning like doing like day-to-day operations. So kind of learning like all that stuff. So me and my buddy actually used to work. I actually credit my buddy Jeremy Saviano. So we used to
Shout
work
out
together for this.
Jeremy.
Shout out to Jeremy. So we used to work for a startup. I ran the day-to-day operations, and he ran like video marketing and all that stuff. So we both like separated. We both left the company, and then eventually he started working for a YouTuber called Just Dustin. He has about 6.5 million or at least 5 or 6 million followers on YouTube. So he started becoming his like editor and videographer and all that. And then Dustin, so this
Mm,
was about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I would say. So Dustin, him and Jeremy have been working together for a while, and then Dustin was like, "Hey, like I need somebody to come give hands and help build like sets and all that stuff." And I was like, and like help with day-to-day operations. And Jeremy was like, "Well, I kind of know a guy. He hasn't built sets or anything like that, but he's just good at doing stuff. Like that's the thing is that if you give me a problem, I will find a way to solve it." So I met Dustin.
mm-hmm.
He hired me on, and then I started like work with him and all that. And then one day like he just flipped the camera towards me. He goes like, "Hey, do you want to be on camera?" And I was like, "Cool, put me on camera." So
You're like,
then
hi.
yeah, I was like, "Hey, hi, like I'm the guy that built the set." So the next thing you know,
Yeah.
the crowd, the audience liked me in the videos. And then from there, I kind of became a character on the Just Dustin YouTube channel. So I did that for about 4 years. And then from there, I kind of like just found my own, it kind of resparked my ability to dabble back into social media now that I do have an audience. So I will credit Dustin for like
Hmm.
helping me kickstart social media, but it's like the work ethic that kept them all there, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I
Sorry.
know
Yeah, sorry, I ramble a
specifically
lot.
that.
Sorry, I ramble a lot.
No, that's great. Yeah, but that's better than having nothing to say. So we
That is true.
appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
That's what podcasts are. It's just getting to listen to other people's thoughts.
Yeah,
But I was going to say that your work ethic, and it's interesting to hear that you even had like kind of, another creator kind of support just you starting out and people giving you opportunities. That's like very humble and very awesome that you recognize where that came from. But for someone like me who just found you through, like I got given a list of creators, me and my boss, and we're just
yeah.
like watching people's videos, and yours stood out, and we're like, Eric, we don't even
Thank
care
you.
where he's based out of, we will make it work. So that's just the proof that like work ethic after makes such a big difference, because you could have just ridden a wave of like, I'm just going to do whatever the people want. But I could tell from your content that you were doing what was fun for you, and what's fun for you is involving your family, your friends,
Mm,
going thrifting, and doing just like humor with a mix of like, I'm a real person. You're not going to stage your entire life just to make a piece of content. So I think that's very genuine, and it's not always what you see in the creator space. And also there's just a lack of guy creators. So if anybody's a guy listening to this, like you could definitely be a creator, because we're
Yo,
always
there's
looking.
there's a market for there's like because like there's like you see it now in these days. There's like two sides of social media. There's like the superficial side, but then there's also the authentic side. And like for
Hmm.
everyone that is listening to this podcast, my one advice is like just stay true to like the content that you want to make. If you want to make cooking videos, make cooking videos. You know what I
True
mean?
that.
If you want to make like dance videos, make dance videos. If you want to just rant to your camera every day with a Starbucks in your hand, rant every day to the camera with a Starbucks in your hand. Because at the end of the day, like
Yeah.
one another piece of advice that like I'll give to people is that ever since I totally started taking social media more like taking the serious route, I've noticed a lot of like my high school
Hmm.
friends or people that like I've met throughout university, a lot of them have started to like unfollow me on social media. Now I'm not taking offense to that because like
Hmm.
I've some of these people that have unfollowed me, they've messaged me like, "Hey, like I unfollowed you because I just don't enjoy your content. I just don't want to see you post your 30 days, 30 fits." And I'm like,
Hmm.
that's cool because I'm not making my content for you. I'm making
Hmm.
my fashion post for the person that's gonna see my post, see me wear a cool cardigan, and then go try and buy a cardigan to fit it into their style. Like
Hmm.
I aim to inspire people, and if you're If you're not getting inspired by my content, you're not my audience. So that's the one thing, is
Yeah.
that like I hear this from everybody. Anyone that hits me up being like, "Oh, I want to start social media. I want to start social media, but I just don't know what others are going to think." Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
The people that do care about your content, that's what's going to help you grow. If anyone like talks bad about you, they're just not your audience, and you have to kind of just like do what you want to do, and you have to take like a selfish route, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. Just focus on what you're trying to build and what you want to create. I was going to ask you, have you ever considered, just because we're similar in age, almost the same age, actually. I feel like we would have been friends in high school because I
I think we
also
would have.
love
We
student
definitely would have.
council and just like connecting. Yeah, I think we would have been friends. But I do also remember a season in my life where I was kind of taking social media in a more creative, serious route, different than like when we were in high school when it was updates. Like that was what people were posting before. It was just update after update.
Yeah.
And then like a food photo and then like their dog and a weird filter and like that kind of style. I do remember people unfollowing, and I do remember people just kind of like not engaging in my content that I would know personally. And I'm like, how come the strangers are real supporters, but the like OGs from your life aren't always, but that's really good advice that you gave, and really good realistic check-in, is that the people that you like went to high school with, it's not about them. It's not about them when you're making your outfits, because I appreciate the outfits. I save them. I show them
Mhm.
to my husband. Like I send them to friends who are like, how do I dress? Like there's not enough, outfits for guys that are my build or like my style or like live in Canada who can buy like the same clothes that I can buy in Canada. So I think it's a really good reminder to just think about what you want to make. But did you ever consider like, oh, I just need to start a whole new account for everything because I need to
Uh,
be far away from the people
I've
from before?
I've started it. I've contemplated it, but at the same time, like I don't want to restart from step one. Like I've built
Mm,
like my page, like right now on Instagram, I have 10.2K on Instagram and I have 320,000 on TikTok. But my 320,000 on TikTok, none of my friends really had TikTok, so that's where like I was just making content for whoever's out there in the world, you know? And then on
mm-hmm.
Instagram, obviously, like I had a whole backlog of personal posts. So like if you go on my personal Instagram, like they're still there. That photo I posted from high school, it's still on my Instagram. But like if you just go to my Instagram and for like you'll see the progression of when like how I've evolved as just a regular Instagram user into now a creator that makes content for Instagram, you know? So I have
Mm-hmm.
thought about restarting. To answer your question, I have thought about restarting, but there's no point in doing that because I've built I'm a you would say I'm a fashion content creator, I'm a lifestyle creator, but I just consider myself just like, yeah, I have a niche per se if you want to put a thing on it, but I'm just a creator. I just want to make cool
Yeah.
stuff and put out into the world, and you just know that it's Eric Esma. So
Yeah, it's just there. That's really cool. I also wanted to touch on how, yes, you're a creator. Yes, you love fashion and making content about fashion, but you also do another cool project, business, and thing on the side, which is really funny because I must have walked by your booth at the flea market because I looked at every single booth that was there, and I just loved I love like vintage clothing and thrifting, and you obviously love that and share that passion online with your community. But okay, how did you get into, I'm gonna go source really cool clothing, share it,
yeah.
sell it, and you just kind of, I feel like you just launched a whole new like step in your fashion journey also.
So I run my own I guess you'd call me a vintage seller, a vintage curator, but I have my own business. It's called Vintage by Esma. The only reason why it's called Vintage by Esma is because if you search my last name Esma on Facebook, you see my mom, my dad, me, and my sister. There's no Esmas out there. So the
Perfect.
the only Esmas you'll see are like, I think it's a Croatian thing where like there's a lot of women where the Esma is the first name. So you see a lot of Esma first names, but you see no Esma last names. So but yeah, so basically like growing up, like just didn't have money. So and I wanted to get into books and reading, but Chapters and Indigo, those places are so expensive when it comes to books that I went to thrift stores to go get books. Because where else are you gonna get a book for $2.99 that costs $30 at the store,
Yeah.
right? So the next thing you know, I'm at Value Village, and then I noticed like as I walked into the store, there's a jersey rack, and there was a Vince Carter 1999 Toronto Raptors basketball jersey, and I'm like, yo, that's so sick. Let me grab that because like I didn't know you can get jerseys at the thrift store. I was just going straight to the book aisle, and that was that. Next thing you know, I start going through like the jersey aisle. Then I'm like, okay, wait, let me go check the polos. Then I started seeing like Lacoste and Burberry and like all these cool brands, And then next thing you know, I start making my own collection of stuff at home. And then just boom, clothes start piling up in the house, clothes start piling up in the house. Then in high school, or sorry, no, it was like university. Some kids were like, "Yo, Eric," or some of my like classmates, they were like, "Yo, Eric, you dress really cool. Where you getting all these clothes, bro? Like we're on a ramen noodle lunch diet in university, and you're wearing all these cool clothes. How can you afford that?" And I'm like, "Well, I go to the thrifts," and they're like, "Okay, well, if you're at the thrifts and you see something in my size, can you like grab it for me and I'll give you some money?" So okay, cool. So next thing you know, I start sourcing for my friends, and then my friends of friends, I start sourcing for them. Next thing you know, I have like some of my homies pull up to my parents' basement, and then they start shopping through all my vintage clothes, start buying stuff. Then the basement got too packed, so I had to move it to my parents' garage. My parents' garage got so packed, so I had to get a storage unit, and then I have people come to the storage unit to come shop. Then there was an event called 613 Flea, which you have attended. It's a flea market that happens in Ottawa once a month. So I'm like, you know what? Like, I have this customer base of my friends and friends of friends and word of mouth, but let me go to 613 Flea and test it out there to see if I can get a new customer base. So then I go out there, boom, it's like meet all these new people. Yo, you have cool clothes. What's your Instagram? Next thing you know, like I'm on a rotation. Like I'm always there every month now. Um, I still have to apply and all that, but I'm there every month, selling once a month. And then just this past 2 months, I got the opportunity to open up a store with 3 other vintage vendors. So we kind of have like a vintage conglomerate, you would say. It's called Goody Mart. It's 593 Bank Street in Ottawa. So if you ever, to the people watching, or you too, if you're ever in Ottawa, come by, come check out the store. And then, yeah, that's my story of how now I have my own vintage store. Yeah.
That's so cool. I think that's the other cool thing about a podcast is you get to hear, like, you see the post and you're like, oh my, like, how did it start? Like, it literally started from you having your close community wanting to do that. And I think the next generation, what generation do you resonate with the most, do you think?
I see. I don't know that. I know that I don't know what terms. I haven't looked into what's which, but
That's okay.
There's what Gen Z,
We're like,
millennials.
yeah,
I don't know.
that's kind of like our
People ask me what I do, and I
generations.
tell them I'm a TikToker. So
Yeah, so you're pretty Gen Z. I was
yeah,
just going to say the next generation is super interested in like entrepreneurship
yeah.
and dreaming of like, okay, I'm going to start a store and or start like pop-ups and things like that. And you're just a good example of you can do it. If you love it, you could do it and
Yeah.
you can get
But
those opportunities.
yeah,
It took you taking a risk.
exactly. But then tying it all back to like your original question, right? Where you're like, what is something you would give to your younger self, right? Like tying it back to the original question is like, what advice would you give to your younger self or high school kids? Make those mistakes. You know what I mean? Like if
Mm-hmm.
I knew about my vintage business, like obviously it came a little bit like later during like my university days, but um if I knew in high school that I could run a vintage business back then and be very successful at it, I would have maybe not even gone to university and pursued just the whole vintage business, right? If I knew about like
Mm-hmm.
if TikTok was a thing back then in high school and I was good at it, who knows where I would have been now? But you owe it to yourself in high school to kind of make those mistakes because I grew up in a very traditional Filipino household and my parents just wanted to, they came here to immigrate to Canada, find a good job, set up a family and do all that stuff. And then for me, it's like, imagine telling your Filipino parents that, hey, I want to sell used vintage clothes and make TikToks in the bedroom. It's not much of a career from their perspective. So just trying to find that balance of like taking that risk of like, hey, I don't knock them for kind of like trying to shoot down the dream because I get it from where they come from. That's not a career, you know? Like back then, 10 years ago, that's not a career.
you know. But now that they've seen my success, they've seen how much like money I make and all that stuff. Like obviously, like I'm not rich, but I do have enough. I do make it well enough to like call it a career. You know, like I do have more freedom with time on my side. Me being around the house, seeing me happy. You know, because I'm not sure if you know this, but I went to university for accounting. I was gonna sit at a desk. Yeah, I finished the degree and got my accounting degree, and now here I am, a TikToker that sells vintage clothes.
From accountant to TikToker. Look at this. That is, I do appreciate that your parents are part of your content. Obviously,
and they love
are
being
willing
in the
to do
videos.
that,
They
and
share it on Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so like immigrant parent things is like they love their Facebook. They are proud of you, just happy to see you happy. They're like, we don't get it at all. Like, don't understand, you know, where this is coming from, where this free stuff is coming from. They're like, okay, just like I just remember like my parents just opening the door and there's just packages of stuff.
Yeah.
What is this? Like, I need it for a video. Don't eat it yet.
I don't know. My dad goes through like my clothes and he goes like, "Oh, you don't wear this anymore? Well, you got this for free. Can I have it?" And I was like, "Oh, cool." But it's nice though because I'm able to take like my mom and dad on like I was able to take my mom to the spa because I had to do a brand deal with Nordique. So she got a whole day like fully compensated at the spa, and it was her first time at the spa. You know, 65-year-old woman's never been to a spa in her whole life, and her son gets to take her and give her the full VIP experience. So I'm very blessed to like I've had a lot of opportunities. I've been told I do have a lucky horseshoe, but it's the luck has helped me get through the door, but it's the work ethic and my hard work and dedication that's kept me in the building, you know? So yeah.
Wow, that's good. I feel like that is a good perspective to have on it as you grow as a creator. Like you mentioned your metrics and that's a public thing people see, but then also the behind the scenes of it is not always what we see. So I just appreciate you being open and honest, and we love when people are grateful for what they've had and what they will contribute to their community. You're definitely a community builder online. So where can people find you if they want to connect or find out about your store or what you're up to?
All right, cool. So if you want to follow me, you can find me on Instagram at Eric Esma, ERICESMA. You can find me on TikTok. It's Blame It on Eric. And then if you want to come shop vintage, come check me out at Goody Mart, 593 Bank Street, located in Ottawa, Ontario.
Wow, you could do a radio ad. That was so good.
Had a little bit of practice.
Okay, well, I'm going to link everything down in the show notes so people can find you. And just, thank you again for being willing to do this, to jump into, you potentially could have made a mistake. You potentially could have, said no, but you took the opportunity. All your advice comes full circle. I love this.
Right? So.
Yeah. Okay, well, have a good rest of your day.
All right, you too, Cece. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.